Good morning, maybe afternoon, maybe evening, because we do record this and we do stick it on our YouTube's channel. Hello, welcome to CDO Matters Live. Happy Friday for those of you who are watching and attending live here on LinkedIn. I'm Malcolm Hawker, your host of the CDO Matters podcast. I am usually joined by my sidekick in crime here, Mr. Ben Bourgeois, who's having some technical issues this morning. His camera doesn't want to work. And I told Ben that we would prefer to see his bright, shiny face and to try to get that figured out. And if he does, he'll join us. And if not, then we don't get to see Ben today. Sad panda. Anyway, happy Friday, everybody. I'm glad to be here. I'll tell you, it's been a rough couple of days for me. I was speaking at a conference yesterday in Tampa. So for those of you who may not know, I live in Central Florida. I'm on the East Coast of Florida, in an area they call the Space Coast, which is like south of Canaveral and Kennedy Space Center. I live in a place called Brevard County. And Tampa is directly across the peninsula. So Florida's a thumb. I'm on one side and Tampa's on the other. And I drove over there on Wednesday night to speak at a conference on Thursday. It's a D4 conference. It's a new conference put on by Lander Analytics and the Certus Group. Actually, it's a lot of fun. Great attendance for a first-time conference. It was both on-site and virtual. It was done at this this startup incubator called the Embark Collective in Tampa. So right downtown, and it's cool. And I stayed on Wednesday night in this place called Ybor City, which is kind of like the old town of Tampa, which was kind of fun. And there was it was fun because there was a random Shriners convention happening and they were holding a parade. So Ybor is unique. It's got a little bit of a vibe, maybe like a 6th Street in Austin, but not quite as wild, but still, at night, still kind of fun. Maybe kind of like a Mardi Gras type vibe. Like a French Quarter type vibe for New Orleans. But anyway, I stumbled on this parade. It was just so random. And anyway, so I get up Thursday morning, dust myself off and do my usual thing. And I'm at a hotel. I'm at a Hilton Garden Inn, which is, I usually stay at Hilton's for whatever it's worth. And I'm heading over to the conference. But before, of course, I'm going to fortify myself, have a nice, good breakfast, a nice big full breakfast at the breakfast buffet. And so I load up on my eggs and bacon and do what I usually do when I'm on the road, make sure I got a good breakfast in my belly and at least a full cup of coffee, and then head over to the conference. And I'm speaking in the afternoon. So I've got a full day of just actually being able to be an attendee at the conference, which was cool. And about an hour after lunch, I'm sitting there and I'm starting to sweat. I'm sweating. I'm getting a little dizzy, and then I get a cold chill, and then I'm starting sweating again, and then I get a little dizzy, and then my stomach starts like growling. And I'll spare you the details, but the next 3 hours was incredibly uncomfortable. 4 hours. Well, the whole day was uncomfortable. To make a long story short, it would appear the hotel eggs, and I've told the story a few times now, and everybody that I've told it to is like, well, of course, because you ate the hotel eggs, you ate the buffet eggs. And I had a lot of them. I'm like 95% sure that the buffet eggs did a number on me and were toxic. So 3 o'clock rolls around, and there's this series of great speakers, and I speak directly after this one speaker. It was just phenomenal. His name is Brett Goldstein, I believe, and one of the founders of OpenTable, who was also the kind of the chief data officer for the Chicago police and had served in the White House, and just like this pedigree that's just like miles long and just unbelievable, credible and great speaker. And I'm on stage directly after him. And I am like, my face is blue. Like it's the color of this shirt because of these stupid toxic eggs. And I'm like, oh. Anyway, I was able to give my presentation talking about MDM and the future of MDM. And I hope it was valuable. I hope the folks who were attending got some benefit out of it. But it was a really interesting day for me, and a conference day that I really didn't quite anticipate. But I still hope that people got some benefit out of me talking about modern MDM. Then I had to get into my truck. Yes, I drive a truck. And then I had to get into my truck and drive for 3 hours back through the swamps of Florida to my home, and that was an awfully long drive. And here I am. So it's Friday morning, a day after my toxic egg experience, TEE toxic egg experience. But I'm super happy to be here. Let me make sure I'm not missing any messages. If see any folks, welcome everybody. Glad you could make it. I didn't see any chats. You know, a big part of this is supposed to be, well, it's whatever you want it to be. This is for you, the listeners. This is for you, the data experts, the data professionals. Yes, I happen to be an ex-Gartner analyst. I know some things. So this is an Ask Me Anything, if you want it to be. So if there are questions that you've got about data strategy, MDM, data governance, data quality, anything data related, hey, there's Ben. Please feel free to ask. Did you get your camera thing figured out, Ben?
I'm back.
Well, you didn't miss much. I was just giving my toxic egg story.
Oh no. I'm glad I missed it then.
Yeah, I'm still kind of dealing with it a little bit. Like I wouldn't kind of queasy. But yeah, that was quite a way to be on the road. And I guess for the amount of times I've been on the road, for that to only happen once, I guess is a little bit of a road warrior miracle, but so be it. I'm still here, and we're still talking about data today, live on LinkedIn. So, awesome. Welcome, Ben. I'm glad you could make it.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, everybody had some technical difficulties here, but we got it sorted out.
Cool.
How are you today, Malcolm?
I'm better. I'm better. I'm glad it's Friday, man.
Yeah, we're almost there.
What's on the agenda for today, sir?
Yeah. Look, I saw you had a post on LinkedIn this week that got a ton of eyeballs, ton of engagement, a lot of people interested. Kind of a playbook for modern data leaders. You know, I'm sure we've got a lot of either data leaders or aspiring ones on the call today. You were kind of saying top qualities you say are at the top of the list, being more customer centric, stuff like that. What's your take on how what's different between data leaders today and what we traditionally look at?
Well, thank you for asking. Let me step back just a little bit. And for many of you who tune regularly into the CDO Matters podcast may have heard me say some of these things in the past, but this post that I had on LinkedIn about what I'm calling modern data leadership, this is not something I just woke up and onto LinkedIn. This is literally, these things are things that I've been thinking about for years, and I'm not kidding here. I've been trying to kind of galvanize my thoughts around around the question of why do we as data people continue to struggle with some of the same things over and over and over and over and over again? Why do we know that things are important, yet we have a hard time executing them or implementing them? Why is it that we know that, kind of tying data to business value and business outcomes is important, and yet we don't do it? So there's this divide between I don't want to call it the metaphor of like taking medicine or eating good food or doing the things that we know are important, yet we still don't do them. I think it's a little more than that. I think it's more meaningful than that. But there is this divide between what we say is important and then what is actually happening. And I've been trying to put my finger on this for literally for years. And it's something that I think it's correct to use the word haunted me for my 3 years as a Gartner analyst, because I was having conversations day in, day out with CDOs, CIOs, VPs of data and analytics about the things that we know that work, yet I saw a lot of struggles to actually implement them or to get them done, or maybe even not even focus on them at all. So I've kind of come up with a few theories as to why that is. And rather than me sitting back and saying, you need to do this, take your medicine, you need to exercise more, rather than kind of taking the finger waving approach, which, by the way, is one of our problems. We wave way too many fingers. We do this to our partners in the business far too much. So rather than me take that finger wavy approach, I wanted to take the approach of, okay, what would be a different way to approach being a data leader? Because I know how we approach it having been in the space 20 years and spoken to literally thousands of data leaders, I know what we're doing. And I also know in many ways, not always, but in many ways it's not working. So how could we change? And the more I thought about it, the more I kept coming back to what I could really just kind of loosely call as a mindset. I think we need a different mindset as data leaders. And what would that look like? Well, one thing that I think we need to be doing more of is looking inwards before we look outwards, right? We talk a big game about culture and data culture and a data-driven culture. Mm-hmm. But a lot of the leaders that I talk to seem to think that culture happens somewhere else, right? Like it's over there. It's in the business side, right. and we need to get them to be more data-driven. And our culture problems are over there. They're in the business. And man, mm-hmm. I've got it, rough because I need to get these business folks more data-driven, and there's a cultural roadblock, right, standing in my way because they're not being data-driven. And like just that in and of itself is like, okay, wait a minute, hold on, time out. Are you as a data leader modeling the behaviors you want the business to adopt? For example, you want the business to be data-driven, meaning mm-hmm. you want the business to use facts in making decisions, right? Like sure. not guessing, not intuition, not anything else. You want the data to lead decision making. Do you do that internally within the data and analytics team? Are you data-driven within the data and analytics team? Here's where things start to get a little bit interesting. Often I see the answer is actually no, they're not.
Yeah, they're not modeling behavior they expect everybody
right.
to do.
They're not tying or quantifying business value. They're using intuition to prioritize. They're using intuition and gut to figure out what needs to work, what needs to be worked on and not worked on, and how value is being driven. And interestingly, what I see is the phenomenon of data-driven in data and analytics teams actually has an exact opposite impact of being customer-driven. And what I've seen instead is a lot of data leaders actually internalize this notion of being data-driven, mm-hmm. which means in our world, kind of starting at the bottom, starting from the data level and kind of working your way up to business problems when we should be starting with business problems.
Right.
We should start with problems, but instead we start with data because we're data first. But that's the data-driven culture was never about data. It was never about data. It was about fact-based decision-making. The data was required to do it, but it was never really about the data. But in the data world, we've taken this data-first mindset and we put data at the center of the universe when really that's not what it should be. Our customers should be the center of the universe, and their problems should be the center of our universe. So that's just one example. I could go on for hours, but I think we're going to explore a lot more of this in the coming months in my content, and we're going to explore more of this. And I don't know, we're going to do some things through prophecy.com and maybe even publish an ebook related to this, and maybe even a real book.
Leather
bound. I have many leather bound books. Love any chance I get to quote Ron Burgundy, I will take it.
Never a bad time to quote Ron Burgundy.
Looking at people who have joined. Hello, Jim Robinson, event driven versus product driven. Well, yeah, event or transactionally driven, or dashboard driven, or data driven. But yeah, I hope I'm saying this the correct way. Funky. Alan from the UK, Rami from Abu Dhabi. That's fantastic. What time is it in Abu Dhabi? It's got to be like 2:00 in the morning, something like that. That'd be my guess. I mean, anyway. Hey, Rami.
Yeah.
What time?
7:14 p.m. So
okay. Man, I blew it.
Not 2 a.m.
Sorry, my bad, Rami. Hey, glad you could be joining from Abu Dhabi. That's I need to get to the Middle East and to the UAE. I've heard great things, so need to put that on my list. So anyway, Data leadership. What is modern data leadership? I think one thing is huge. We need to look inwards. We need to model, culture starts at home, right? And if you want to be more data driven and fact driven, well, then do things like understand the business impacts of what you're doing, model those impacts, quantify those impacts. Then you can actually prioritize based on data instead of intuition. So, and I could keep going. Another big part of it, keep going. Another big part of it is
one of the things I liked that you said about it was, people, this is interesting for us in the MDM space. It's, you look at data refinement, improvement, quality improvement as this chore, as this bane of their existence. And it's like, well, maybe you need to look at that as the, the reason you get paid. Maybe that's an opportunity for you to have an impact.
So disclaimer, data quality problems are real. I know this. I have managed MDM implementations. I've managed CRMs, which are commonly held out as the worst case offenders when it comes to data quality of pretty much any database in any company. I know what data nightmares lurk in systems like CRMs and digital marketing platforms and on and on. So data quality problems are real. Mm-hmm. However, when we constantly read headlines like 80% of data scientists' time is wasted because of data quality issues, or you're not going to get any value out of AI because all the garbage is going in, garbage and data quality. And another soundbite recently, it's not a soundbite, there's actual research, and this blows me away. Quoted from my friend Tom Redmond, the data doc, told me that 3%, only 3% of enterprise data would meet minimum data quality standards. Just think about that. Okay, besides the fact that, what does that actually mean, right? Mm-hmm. Like all data, every nugget, like every row in a log file, every nugget of IoT data. I'm putting that aside. If 90% of all of our data is crap, how do we even operate? How is this even happening right now?
Right. How do we log on?
How am I even able to do what I'm doing right now? If 90% of the data sitting underneath this platform is crap. So, it's these things, right? Most of the data is bad. 80% of the data is bad, is low quality. We got low quality problems, 3% fit for purpose, and on and on and on. When you peel the onion on some of these headlines, what you will see is that these problems are not actually data quality as I would define data quality, right? So there are well-established, well-defined dimensions of data quality: accuracy, completeness, timeliness, fit for purpose, right? We can go into the standard dimensions of quality. But when you peel the onion on some of these headlines, what you'll see is that really what's going on is that data is in a wide variety of formats, in a wide variety of structures. There's no standards when it comes to metadata. There are different database structures. There are old mainframes still lurking out there. And on and on and on. A lot of this has to do with normalization, transformation, to get the data in a place where it can be analyzed. But if you keep thinking about this a little bit more, you ask yourself, are our business partners, are our customers within the business, are they doing their jobs? Right? Are they sending invoices? Are they recognizing revenue? Are they supporting customers? Are they building products? Are they innovating? Are they hitting their SLAs? Yes. Yeah,
the fact that there's a budget that exists for you to have a role to ponder these questions means
right. So obviously the data they're using isn't complete crap. It isn't 97% bad. It can't be. So when you think about it, the conclusion that I've come to is that data that is optimized for an operational use may not be optimized for an analytical use. And if you
fit for purpose in the system or silo or whoever leader is managing it, it just might not be suitable to analyze alongside three other different systems.
And if you assume the business has positive intentions, this is another attribute of a modern data leader. If you assume the business has positive intentions, right? If you assume that they are doing their best to meet customer needs or build products or innovate or manage risk or do whatever the business is doing, if you assume that they have positive intentions, ergo, those systems are optimized to deliver on their SLAs, their KPIs, their MBOs, right? Those systems have been optimized to do that. Yet we are sitting back here saying those systems are crap and the data in them is crap too. This creates this us and them divide that I think is really having negative impacts on our ability to be customer focused. When we sit back there and wave our fingers and say, your data's bad, your data's bad, your data's bad, yet the business is operating often very well and highly efficiently, I think that's doing a disservice. Instead, and maybe another way to look at it would be to say, wow, they're optimized. They've done everything they can to optimize for a certain use case. It just happens to not be an analytical one. And if we accept that, if we say that, then okay, they're doing their best. They have well intentions. They're doing good things. The data that they're using is reasonably good for them, is fit for purpose for them. It just happens to be difficult for us to use on the analytics side. Well, then maybe you could take your mindset and shift it away from finger wave, bad data, crap data, bad data to, hey man, you guys are killing it. You're doing what you need to do. Now I need to do what I need to do. And this is an opportunity for me. It's not a burden.
Yeah, and maybe the work that I do can actually help you get even more efficient, can help you identify benefits you didn't even think of.
Exactly. Oh, I'm checking out comments. Sorry, Rami, you actually answered 7:14 p.m. Thank you. I need to, my eyes are so bad.
Yeah, get the readers going.
Smriti, sorry. Hi. Thank you for your well wishes. I'm glad I'm feeling better too. Yes, please ask more questions, but thank you for the kind words. Anyway, I think there is a lot to consider from the perspective of changing our mindset in the data and analytics world. And it starts by looking inwards. We need to stop waving fingers. We need to stop assuming the business has negative intentions. We need to stop thinking that the business is like making things harder for us intentionally, because they're not. They're just trying to do their work.
Yeah, and you also talked a lot, and we've talked about this on a few episodes now. I mean, it's taking that product-centric approach, taking a product manager point of view perspective to what you're actually doing with data management, right? And if people are not adopting the tools you're developing, if people are not using them, if they're not getting value from them, it's not because they don't know how to use it. It's not because they're incapable of figuring it out. They're not getting value from it. That's a product failure.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we talk a big game. This was the number one topic at the most recent CDO conference I went to, data products, right? So we talk a big game about data products and let's make a product. Okay, let's do it. Let's make a product. What would that involve? Okay, well, first of all, optimally to me, if it were up to me, it would involve hiring a product manager, because these are people that know how to build products. It's what they do for a living. This is a unique skill called a product manager. I actually used to be one. Believe it or not, I was a chief product officer in a previous life. I've hired and retained teams of product managers. It's a unique skill. So go hire a product manager. If you want to build products, go hire a product manager. That's step one. What you will learn in doing that is that there is a discipline of product management, and there are aspects of this discipline of product management, starting with building an understanding in having a deep and intimate understanding of your customer needs, their problems, their challenges, right? So it's a great place to start. You start with customers, you start with their needs. But let's assume that we understand their needs, and then we get into a development process, and we make a widget, we make a product, and then we launch the product. But nobody uses it. And it's free, by the way. It's free, right? Like you don't have to slap down your Visa card to get at your Tableau dashboards, right? You don't. It's free. I know it's not free. A lot of companies do have budget allocations and they have internal cost sharings. But in essence, for most people, it's free. But you launch the product, the free product, and nobody uses it, right? And they don't like it. And when they use it, they don't trust it. They look at the data, they're like, what's this? I don't even know what this is. This isn't helping me at all. This isn't solving my problems. I don't want to use it. It's difficult. Maybe the interface is clunky. Maybe it's poorly designed. And you start having users complain. Users don't use it. Users don't adopt it. Well, that sounds to me like you blew some requirements. You didn't understand the requirements very well. You didn't understand the users very well. You didn't take a user-centric design or UX design, or like UX-centric, user-centric design. You didn't follow kind of basic product management 101, or maybe the build was messed up somehow. Like maybe there was something in the actual manufacturing process where, maybe whatever you did to build the dashboard is broken, a defect, as it were, like a product defect. Maybe there is a real defect there. Who knows? Could be both, right? You either missed a requirement, you failed to deliver a compelling, easy to use, intuitive, problem-solving thing, or it's got some defects in it. But what we do is we say, oh, well, here are my products. You don't like them, or you don't know how to use them, or you feel like you're not getting value from them. Well, then I need to make you more literate.
Right.
Because clearly you lack literacy. I'm all for training, right? This is user enablement is a part of product management, is an important part of product management. Users need to know how to use your products, right? This is the instruction manual. This is the FAQs. But in a perfect world, if you build it right, and if it's intuitive, if it's easy to use, if it's solving problems, users are going to get value out of it. I mean, I would challenge the notion that users don't know how to use reports.
Right.
Right. I mean, like, this isn't, we're not building rocket ships here, right? Like we're building dashboards. We're building reports. Maybe we're building sophisticated AI models. So I know it's not all dashboarding, and I know it's not all analytics. Maybe we are, publishing master data products, right? Like a customer master or a supplier master, right? So I know it's beyond analytics, but this isn't a rocket ship, right? And I would argue most of the people, if they've been in business for any length of time, have been consuming data for a long, long time. So it's not like we launched an iPhone where like the interface was brand new, right? Like iPhones had the first touch interface ever, right? But we're not doing that. We're not. I would argue. So anyway, if you want to be product centric, yeah, go for it. I'm all for the integration of product management into data management, but don't assume that because your users complain about your products that it's their fault.
Right. 100%. So staying on the data leader tack for a bit, you also had a post recently. You're talking about CDOs and other data leaders who don't have a technical background. And, some people kind of see that as, hey, maybe that's a gap in my skill set, my knowledge. Maybe that's even a liability. You said, look at it as an opportunity. What are some of the things that you think are potential benefits of having a non-technical background, and kind of how you position that to being a data leader?
I will touch on that after I answer Streethy's question. So there's a question: should MDM be positioned as a driving and leading force, or do you view it better suited for a supporting role in addressing data pain? That's a great question. And thank you for asking it. The answer is it depends. The soundbitey answer here is that building a solid foundation of master data, customer, vendor, supplier, asset, material, part, inventory, employee, you name it. There's a soundbitey answer here that says building a solid foundation around that data is critical to get value from that data, and I believe that to be true. However, MDM can be disruptive and it can be risky, particularly from an operational perspective. When you start talking about creating a single gold master and then publishing that into source systems, that most certainly can be done. A lot of companies are doing it, and that's where the greatest value is going to be, but that's going to take some time. So I would rather, so I guess the answer to your question really depends on kind of where you are from an overall data and analytics and governance maturity perspective. If you're just starting out in governance, if you're just starting out in data management, if you're just kind of tinkering with the idea of MDM, then I think yes, it can be a driving force. It absolutely positively can be a driving force, because you can do things like create a customer 360 or supplier 360 that maybe doesn't exist today, right? So today, chances are most companies have silos of data, right? The classic example is CRM versus ERP, silo one, silo two. Most companies have something that look an awful lot like that, right? Where it is the world of things outside of finance or procurement and manufacturing, and the world of procurement and finance and manufacturing, right? And how to bring these two worlds together. These are two classic silos. A great way to do that is to use MDM, as you said, as a driving force to create a consistent view across those worlds. Now, does customer data already exist in them? Of course it does, right? There's customer data in CRM, there's customer data in ERP. So is the MDM the driving force behind creation of customer data? No, but it can be the driving force to significantly improve your overall data and analytics maturity. It most certainly can. If you are looking at ways to improve how your data and analytics function adds value, you could look at data quality. Sure, let's go do a data cleanup. You could look at data integration. You could look at metadata management and a catalog, right? Like that's another option out there for you. Hey, let's go stand up a catalog. Maybe you could go buy Tableau and add some shininess from a BI perspective. These are all things that you could be doing. If it were up to me, now I may be a little biased because I'm an MDM guy, but of all the things that I could be looking at and all the things I could be doing, I would be focusing on MDM first, because that data can be used operationally. Even if all you're doing is producing a 360 report, you can hand that to somebody in sales and say, hey, look, there's opportunities for cross-sell and upsell here. You can hand that supplier 360 to somebody in procurement, and they could go and optimize that relationship, maybe drive down prices, maybe have consistent payment terms, whatever it is. There's value that you could drive there right away. The value of a data catalog, by comparison, this is just one. The value of a data catalog is like, okay, well, now we can see all of our data. Doesn't even compare from my perspective, because the value of seeing all the data is more of a data and analytics value, right? Taking the inventory. Okay, maybe there's a marginal end user benefit there, but it's not like having a consistent view of customers or suppliers or employees. So I think MDM can be a driving force to really launch a data strategy, right? To build more maturity within a data and analytics function, because so much else of what we do, data integration, metadata management, governance, tends to be a little more foundational. It tends to be a little more inwardly looking. So that's the answer to the question. I hope that touched on it. Ben, to your question about non-technical people in technical roles. Yes, I was a non-technical person in a technical role. I was hired relatively early in my career to lead a team of 15 Java developers, and I didn't know anything about engineering. But I was a product manager who knew how to build products, who knew how to talk to end users, who knew how to define requirements, to analyze business processes. And I got put in this role of managing engineers. Turns out I did okay. And I know a lot of people in a data and analytics leadership perspective who are not technical at all and who are really, really good. The reason why is because they have unique perspectives that I think non-technical people have difficulty bringing to the table, right? Perspectives on things like how to build and manage products, perspectives like how to interface with customers, how to ask the right questions, problem solving through an end user perspective or design perspective, interfacing with financial people and maybe doing things like building cost models and ROI models. These are things that engineers, this is not really their world, right? So I've seen a lot of non-technical people be extremely successful in data leadership roles, but I think a lot of companies really kind of struggle with recruiting, and they will almost always kind of default back to technical responsibilities in these job postings. And I just know a lot of people out there today who are looking for data leadership roles, and what they see is, must know Python, must know R.
Right.
It's like, I don't know any of that stuff. And honestly, I think you could say, if you are trying to get a job where you're not technical and somebody has posted in their listing for a senior manager of data and analytics and must know Python, maybe not a good fit. Because optimally, you want to be working in a place that sees value in you as a non-technical person, because you have a ton of value to add. Exactly. You have a ton of value. The joke I tell is that, to me, the ultimate CDO is one half business, one half technical, and one half salesperson.
Yeah,
And I know that's three halves, but that's kind of the joke, right? It's kind of a bit of a unicorn: sales, tech, and business outside of sales, like, you know, marketing acumen and product management acumen and those types of things. So you can be successful as a CDO without a technical background. I see it every day.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things I liked about what you said was, you know, because you don't have the technical background, you haven't been through the technical side of implementing software for this or for that. So you kind of come at it with, you're not saying, I've done this before, I'm just going to save as and do this previous thing in my career to solve this problem. You're looking at it from a fresh lens, and you're looking at it, to your point, from a product manager perspective of, well, here's exactly what I'm trying to solve. What do we do to address that?
I love putting product managers into CDO roles or senior data leadership roles. If you're a product manager or have product management background, and you are a little more analytical, a little more, you really like diving into workflows, you really like to dive into understanding business processes and kind of dissecting them down, like nothing would excite you more than ripping apart quote to cash. If that's you, I think you'd make a great data leader. Turns out I was reasonably good at it. And that's the world that I came from. I came from a product management world. So yeah, but your point, Ben, new perspective, fresh perspective. Make the perspective about the customer. Make the perspective about the product you're building to solve for customer needs. Forget the data.
Yeah.
Did I just say that out loud? Forget the data. Sorry.
It's the be on the t-shirt you're wearing next month.
That would be good. I went to a conference in it was in London, and one of the sponsors, their swag t-shirt said giant block letters, MDM is dead. I was like, oh,
really?
And then on the back it said MDM is alive. But if you only ever saw the front of the t-shirt, I forget who the vendor was. I'll scream it out probably after our recording's done. But yeah, forget the data, says the data guy.
Yeah, I mean, I think it just, you touched on this earlier. It's like being data driven. It's like this dogmatic thing that you hear so often, and it's like you really have to flip that on its head. Like, being data driven is not about overwhelming everyone with reports and analytics and, like you said, the finger wagging of this is how it should be done. It's understanding how to use data to actually get something meaningful done. How do you add value to somebody's job, their role?
Right. And it's that kind of dovetails into another post that I had earlier this week on LinkedIn as well, where I said that, and I quoted a Gartner study, their 6th annual CDO research, which was a survey of 400 CDOs. So not a small sample size, a pretty good sample size on a global basis. Mm-hmm. And what they found was that data CDOs who prioritize data quality initiatives are 43% less likely to drive successful business outcomes. Like, chew on that. Right? Like, you prioritize data quality, but you're 43% less likely than your peers to drive material business outcomes, which is like this. Wait a minute. But
something's gone amiss here.
But what we were just saying, forget the data, right? Forget about the data. There's a tie back here. And I expounded on this in my post. And I think really what happens here is that when CDOs make it about data quality, right, they inevitably focus on the things that they can control, right? And in areas where they can't, it's finger wavy, tisk, crap, making my life harder. But in the areas where they can control, it's foundational stuff like buying a data quality tool and buying a data catalog. And it's maybe getting a better integration tool, maybe focusing on some pipeline type work. Getting back to the 80% of data is not good for data scientists, and they waste all this time in transforming data. Maybe we go buy some tools to help automate transformation of some of those data and some of that data in the form of ETL tools. So when CDOs focus on data quality, They turn to things that they can control, which tend to be technologies that the business just doesn't care about, right? And that arguably in the short term don't drive value. Getting back to my previous comment to the question about can MDM be foundational? Yes, it can. And can it be a driving force? Yes, it can, because you can actually drive business value. But if you build a data catalog, are you driving business value? Are you making somebody's life in sales better because there's a data catalog? Chances are you have access to it. Right. So I think there's something there about it's not forget the data. It's just stop obsessing about the data and obsess about what the customers need. The data is a means to an end. It's not the end. The end is customer satisfaction. The data is the means to get there.
Yeah, 100% agree. Though we can't get rid of forget the data. I've already ordered the t-shirts.
Like forget the data, says the data guy. Like, great tool for job longevity. Like,
yeah.
The data.
And we're streaming on LinkedIn as well. And I saw your buddy Scott Taylor, Malcolm, said saying data stuff is dead is dead.
Yeah. Saying data stuff is dead is dead. Yeah, it's the new black. But yeah, it's not. There is a little bit of a contradiction here. There's a little bit of somebody on LinkedIn, kind of called me out for what appeared to be a circular argument in that post that I made about CDOs not realizing business value by prioritizing data quality, because data quality is still important.
Sure.
Data quality is still important. Don't get me wrong. Data quality is important. It is important. But the difference there, and how it's not a circular argument, meaning focus on data quality, but then you're not going to succeed, but keep focusing on data quality, you're just going to not keep succeeding. The delta is how. It's about how we do it, how we focus on data quality. Instead of, and this was really the key takeaway from the Gartner research. The research was never meant to say, forget data quality, forget data. The research was meant to say, how we do it is problematic. And there's a different way. There's a better way. Focus on the outcomes. Use the outcomes to drive your data quality initiatives. Take an MVP, a minimum viable product approach based on that outcome. Maybe the outcome is a sales forecast report, right? Like, what's the minimum amount of data quality needed to be addressed, to fix, in order to deliver on that outcome? What's the minimum amount of master data that you would need to do that? What's the minimum amount of integration that you would need to do all those things? What does a slim pipeline look like to facilitate that report? If you put boundaries around all of this stuff and make it about that outcome, well, then your chances of succeeding are going to be infinitely larger as compared to just saying, well, we need to go fix all of our data.
Right. You're focused on the 20% of data or integration or anything like you just mentioned that's going to address 80% of the problems. You're not
good old Pareto. Yes.
Yeah. You're falling into scope creep, boil the ocean. Like you said, let's just fix all of our data.
It's the how. Yeah. So the message here isn't, the data's dead. The message here is getting back to what we were talking about earlier, mindset.
100%.
A mindset of customers and problems and outcomes and value versus a mindset of inventories and glossaries and dictionaries and catalogs.
Tech.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, it wouldn't be a CDO Matters episode in 2023 unless we talked about AI, I don't think.
Yeah.
We had Bill Schmarzo on the podcast recently about, really setting some ground rules for using AI effectively, like stopping and thinking about how you use it. Are there ethical considerations you need to figure out, kind of, do's and don'ts, kind of rules of the road before you just say, hey, everybody's using this LLM, using this OpenAI, and we've got to jump on it. How do you kind of take a step back and really think about it strategically?
Yeah. I don't have a lot of magic answers here. I wish I did. But the conversation with Bill was great because he thinks about this stuff day in and day out. And I would recommend, if you are a data leader kind of struggling with things like, okay, AI governance and what that really even means, and kind of AI frameworks and getting your hands around AI from a governance or analytics perspective, I would listen to that podcast, and I would consider reading Bill Schmarzo's latest book called AI and Data Literacy and AI. And I give Bill an absolute pass on the use of data literacy, because the intent on that one is to learn about AI and become a little bit more aware of AI, because I think that's actually probably a good thing. But the stepping back, I think there's so much to be learned from experts like a Bill Schmarzo and others who are out there. I'm working to become an expert on this, but I certainly have a lot more to learn. Every time I think about it, there's two things that really pop out to me. Well, there's really just one. There's one thing that pops out to me, and it haunts me, and I don't know how to figure it all out yet. And it's one word. It's explainability. I think, in my experience as a data leader, everything that I've done, anytime it was challenged, it came back to explainability. Could I explain why users were seeing what they were using? Why is that field in that cell? Why does this customer record look this way? Yes, ultimately, this is what's that?
You have to be able to defend it.
Yeah. But ultimately, really what we're talking about here is trust. I mean, that's kind of the higher level theme. But trust is gained, and it's earned. It's not given, right? And the road to trust starts in explainability town. So if you can't explain what you're doing and why you're doing it, and if it doesn't make rational sense, and if it's not tied to a business problem or to a business need, you're going to have some problems, which I've learned, right? Like this was my nightmare second attempt at MDM. I couldn't explain why people were seeing what they were seeing. I created this gold master record for a customer, and I thought it was just like the be all and end all. It was like the master record to rule all master records. It was this greatest. It was like the Mona Lisa of customer masters, because I had created all of these really complex rules around what we call survivability, right? Like how do you pick which wins, right? When you've got three versions of Acme Incorporated, and they've all got different attributes across each of the different fields, how do you pick a winner? And I had these complex rules of like if, then, if, and it comes from this system, put it this priority and wait this and do this and this, and it like took a month. And then we hit go on the MDM and poof, here's the record. And I was like, we did it. Then we published it, and it was just a train wreck, because I couldn't explain it to anybody. Right? Salespeople were looking in their CRM, like what they used to see Acme LLC, and now all of a sudden they're seeing Acme and Sons, and the address has changed, and everything's different, and I couldn't explain it, and that you're dead in the water. You're done.
Right. And you say, well, don't worry, it's better this way.
Yeah, exactly. Trust me. Right? Trust me. I spent a month on this, and I'm a super smart guy, and I spent a month on this, and you'll be better for it. No. So this is to me, the ultimate challenge of AI in the data and analytics space. There are some things, and there are some governance policies, there are some records, there's some things in our world that we're not really going to care about too much, and we can just give it to the robots, right? Yeah. There are highly rote, mundane, automatable processes that I think will be fine giving to the robots, right?
Sure.
And what I mean by robots is the AI. But if you have to explain it and you can't, we got a problem. And ultimately, to me, this is the heart of what people are calling kind of ethics, right? And I view ethics as an explainability problem, right? Like, what did AI behave ethically? Well, okay, how do you define ethics?
Right.
This is another challenge. This is something that Bill Schmarzo is looking at deeply. He's actually come up with a framework to try to quantify ethics. My hat's off to him, because I think that is a really hard problem to solve. Because we're all different, and we all have different perspectives. But ultimately, I think it's an explainability problem. And we, as an industry and as a group, my screensaver just kicked in again. We need to figure out the explainability problem.
Yeah, 100%.
Sorry, my screensaver kicked in, and then I can't see anything. Everything goes black. But
just screensavers, photos of you and Scott Taylor out of the beach or anything?
Yeah, exactly. Riding a silver unicorn pony together at the beach. Me and
we
Scott
can make that happen.
Scott's my guy. I mean, we're good friends. He makes me laugh. We all need more Scott Taylor in our lives. I do. Scott.
I like to you had a post recently about just the landmines in the data governance kind of vendor landscape, right? You said buyer beware. And there's a million tools that do a million different, perhaps individual things, nothing coming close to what you would call enterprise-wide governance that does both the security and access side and then the quality and enforcement side. How do you recommend somebody navigate that? How do they identify what to do, what to start with?
Well, first of all, don't listen to vendors too much. Says the vendor. The challenge with governance, well, not we have a lot of challenges with governance. But what is governance? Well, a great place to start would be to look at like a governance framework. And I'm generally pretty critical of DAMA, because I think a lot of their stuff is really outdated and drastically needs a refresh. And yes, I will help if somebody asks me. I will certainly help in providing some new perspectives there, because I think that some of the things are in need of update when it comes to DAMA. However, they do have a useful framework for data governance. And what are all the things that go into data governance? And I'm going like this because it's big, right? There's MDM, there's data quality, there's data integration, there's data ethics, there's access and security, there's all sorts of things. There's valuation, there's accountability data. There's all sorts of things that go into data governance, a lot. There's a lot of pieces to this puzzle, right? So if you look at it from a process perspective, there's like kind of 10 blocks of things that you need to figure out. And within any one of those, I will just call it a block. It's like, I think their framework is a wheel, so it's more like a slice of the pie, but whatever. From a technology perspective, there is no one tool that does governance, right? There are 20 tools that do 1/20th of governance. Right? This even includes MDM, right? So MDM does governance for master data, for shared data. It doesn't do governance for all of your metadata. It's not designed as that, right? And when we talk about governance, even the governance policies that MDM supports are a limited set of governance. Most of the time, security and access, for example, is handled by other systems, often, generally. So you've got 20 different systems that would be involved in supporting all of the things you need to do from a governance perspective. But if you listen to the vendors, they say they do governance. There's even like data catalogs say they're data governance tools. But do they do governance? Well, there's two aspects of governance at extremely high level. And I'm simplifying here. There's policy definition, and then there's policy enforcement. But even in the tool that advertises itself as a governance tool, which is a data governance or data catalog, all it does is allows you maybe to define some policies for the data that is sitting in the catalog. It doesn't actually enforce anything. The enforcement is happening in CRM systems, ERP systems, and in the consuming systems where people are actually in the operational systems where people are interacting with this data. Yet there are vendors that are saying, oh, we've got a governance tool. When in reality, it does a slice of governance, a little tiny piece. Then you've got hyperscalers like the Googles and Microsofts and Amazons of the world saying, well, we do governance. Again, just a little slice because they can help with security and access and some controls there. These are good things. Don't get me wrong. You need to do it. But is that all governance? Of course not even close. So to do governance, you have all the data and analytics solutions that are doing just pieces of it, right? Then you've got all the operational systems where the rubber is hitting the road that are doing pieces of it. So the idea that there's any one tool that does governance is beyond silly. It can't exist. But if you're new to data and analytics, if you're a new CDO, maybe if you're coming from outside and you went to an industry event and you were walking in the trade show, and you're looking at, oh, it's a governance tool. Hey, I've got governance problems, and okay, well, let me go buy that tool. You're going to need 20 more of them to fill all of the capabilities that you're going to need from a governance perspective. And that's I don't have any magic answers there. It's just
Sure.
buyer beware, right? Don't get fooled into the idea of thinking because you have a catalog you've solved for governance, or that you've moved to the cloud that you solved for governance. You haven't.
Yeah, and software is, perhaps even if you have those 20 software solutions, even then that's a part of the equation. Just because there's the
Right.
people component, the change management component, and the kind of much maligned governance councils, right? And you had a post about those and how leaders show up for 2 weeks and then they stop showing up to the meetings. I've
Yeah.
been bamboozled into a governance council at a previous job. It's yeah.
That was an interesting post, because I think, when you look at all of what governance is, right? It's policy definition, it's policy enforcement, it's change, it's oversight of the policies, and I made a post that said that I think that governance can largely, not entirely, but largely be automated. And there was a lot of, what do you mean? And there were comments coming back of laughing out loud, right? This is the most ridiculous thing ever proposed. You're a fool. And I may be, but I actually think that a lot of data governance can be totally and completely automated. This is the dream. This is the dream of the data fabric, by the way. Please look for previous episodes of CDO Matters podcast are related to the data fabric, because I actually go into a lot of detail on what that is. But I happen to actually think that a lot, not all, but a lot of governance can be automated. We exist in a world of business processes. The data is a reflection of business processes. Those processes are languages. Mm-hmm. Quote to cash, procure to pay, these are languages, and they can be modeled. Right? If we can model just human language to create new and novel works of art, or anything that ChatGPT can do, if we can do that, we can certainly model the language of procure to pay, or quote to cash, or insert any other business process here. I think we can, right? And I think we can model what good looks like. I think we will know when things are not right. We will know when the data quality is low, because our language won't work anymore, right? There will be exceptions. There will be triggers that are fired off and say, well, wait a minute, this data doesn't conform, fix it. And by the way, how would you make it conform in a way that conforms to the overall language? So I think we absolutely can automate a ton of governance, which is going to make a lot of people happy, because governance councils are boring. I've sat in them, I've chaired them, right? And talking about, how do you data definitions and exception management. I mean, this is my passion, guys. This is my life. Don't get me wrong. I'm not like casting aspersions on data people, because this is how I make a living. I'm just saying it's one of the less glamorous parts of being a data professional is, sitting in meetings talking about data policies.
Yeah. Security classifications, access.
Yeah. Maybe you can push that off on people out of the CISO team, but other stuff like I've lost days of my life arguing around customer definitions or supplier definitions. Like, I'll never get those days back. They're gone forever.
They're gone. They're gone.
Want to make sure I've covered off on any questions. I don't see any in the Goalcast chat. Were there anything lingering on the LinkedIn side that I don't see?
Not that I've seen since.
All right.
Well, actually, we had a question earlier. Just a comment on the operational versus analytical, and that's not the right question to ask. It's kind of use the right tool for the job.
Yeah.
Stephen Hint.
Yeah.
No, I think you nailed all the questions.
All right. Well, I'm super glad everybody could join today. Thank you again for people who are overseas, and way into their Friday night. I hope you found it insightful and maybe a little entertaining. Who knows? But thank you for joining. As always, if you have additional questions, connect with me on LinkedIn. If you're not already connected with me on LinkedIn, please do. DM me on LinkedIn if you've got additional questions you want follow up to. Please check out the CDO Matters podcast. Of course, we're on to our 31st episode, which just published yesterday. Dropped yesterday. Wonderful conversation with the ex-CDO of M&T Bank, Allison Segraves. There are so many resources on prophecy.com. So, if you've got questions about MDM, best practices, you name it, things related to MDM, we've got so many resources in the resources section of prophecy.com. Other areas to look at. As well, I will be often in a city near you this fall. So if you're on prophecy.com, check out is it events? Do we have those highlighted as events yet, Ben?
Got those highlighted as events, yeah.
Yeah.
Your road show.
Yeah, I'll be in Toronto, Boston, Dallas, Houston, Chicago, London, Munich, London again, LA, Philadelphia. I know I'm missing a few, but this fall, if you live in those cities and you want to come, connect maybe in person, let's do it. But check out the events section on prophecy.com. We got a lot going on this fall.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for joining everybody for another awesome episode of CDO Matters Live. We'll see you in a month. Thanks.
See y'all. Have a good weekend.